Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I have a big video for you today. We're going to make 5 cards using the new Spellbinders Clubs for May 2024, and I have a free printable kit full of sentiments to go right along with it. Let's take a look at the kit. This is Birds of Paradise sentiments, and I designed it to coordinate with the May 2024 Spellbinders Clubs, and it says that up here, but you could use these with any stamps or dies that include flamingos, parrots, toucans, or a handful of these can be used with any birds at all. So please know that while it's inspired by those clubs, really you can use it with stuff you may already have. I believe in you, two can do it. Apparently we're trouble when we're together. Two can celebrate better than one. Happy bird day. Here's a little toucan of my appreciation. Best birthday wishes. Holy flock, it's your birthday. Here's to a flamazing birthday. Flappy Flippin bird day. Shake your fabulous feathers and party hard. Party Parrot wishes you a particularly ridiculous birthday. I can't flocking believe how fabulous you are. Wishing you a flocking fabulous birthday. Happy flocking birthday. You are a flamingo and a flock of pigeons. Fla la 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 fabulous. So these sentiments have a circle around them that is just a little bigger than 1 3/4 of an inch. So this first page, you can use that circle to help center your die or your punch. When you can't see the circle anymore, you know you're centered. The next page has the same sentiments and the same sizes, but I removed that circle in case you want to use a different size circle or just a different shape altogether. Then we have them in our rectangle sentiments, and these are 1 1/4 inch by 2 1/4 inches. And you can cut these out with just your trimmer if you don't have dies or punches. Then we have those same sentiments in strip sentiments, and you can use the tick marks along the side to make sure you're cutting everything out straight. So it comes in 4 different fonts. We have sort of a whimsical one over here, a nice bold bouncy font here, a script font, and then just a really classic serif font. Then we have reverse sentiments. It's the same 4 fonts, but with black in the background and white text. I have a laser printer and I get pretty good quality prints on my printer. I put mine on a transparency setting. It just moves everything more slowly through the printer. But if you don't have a great printer, you can go to UPS and they can print for you. Or I've had great luck at the FedEx by my place. They just were so helpful and so kind. I printed on 80-pound hammer mill and got even darker results there than I do at home. If you are a fan of the Spellbinders Clubs and are interested in this free download, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified every time I have a new free kit. For this first card, I'm starting with the small die of the month, and we're going to make this adorable parrot. That kit has a parrot, a toucan, and then some small greenery to go along with them. But really, this guy just won me over. I think I made like 7 of these. He comes together really easily, actually. So I am just piecing on the different parts of his face. There are little debossed lines on that parrot to help you know where they go. When I cut out that white piece, I saved the cheek and I just colored that in with one of my Olo markers and I stuck it right back in there. The black part of the eye is smaller than the opening. I did not save that white piece this time, but I put a little bit of white gel pen in the center of that black part of the eye just to give some layers of color and some depth to our little bird. The feet are really small. So I like to put a dot of glue on the top of the foot and then I just lay the bird right on top of it. I find that easier than trying to like flip him over and pick things up that way. I wanted some color on his belly, and so I poked out all those little pieces and then stuck a pink piece of cardstock just to scrap right behind there. But you could just put some tape behind there to keep those little pieces in the parrot, okay? For me, every time I cut that out, I had sort of the option to keep them blue or to add a different color. The tail feathers have like a base piece to lay them on, and then you just choose 3 different colors. Your dies let you cut out multiple wing pieces and multiple tail feather pieces at the same time. And again, I love this guy. I'm a sucker for a critter, so I just cut out a ton of pieces so I can mix and match and make a bunch of birds. This is the large die of the month, and there are huge flamingos we'll use later, but really I'm grabbing 2 of these large leaves. I've laid them onto my white cardstock kind of where I want them, and then I'm going to pick them up with my sticky mat. I used mint tape to mark the edges of that white cardstock just so I would know how far to put my glue. And then I'll add my glue, and when I flip this back over, I'm going to stick it in the right bottom corner once again, and it's going to go exactly where I had it before. Yes, it's just 2 pieces. I could pick that up and put them back down, but I tell you what, some days I don't have that in me, and so this is just easier. This little branch comes in the small die of the month, and we're just going to perch our little parrot on there. Then I'm going to mat this on some black cardstock. So my white piece is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8, and the black piece is 3 3/4 by 5. So it's just a tiny little black margin all the way around. And I am making, this is shocking, a clean and simple card, you guys. In the background, I've added some fog cardstock from Lawn Fawn. It is almost white, like so close, okay? There's a lot of white space, a lot of room to breathe, and I thought this was a great starting point, but I can't, you know me, I've got to do something. So this is an action wobbler. It is a little plastic spring, and there's adhesive on both sides, right? So I've taken the adhesive off one side, the side with the hole, this is my preference, and stuck it to the bird. But you guys, I don't know what happened to mine. I've had them for so long, and when I was peeling the backing off, they just didn't feel very sticky. So I am adding a little bit of glue as well. That is optional, but I don't know. I don't trust a lot of adhesive if it's not glue. I'm going to stick him down so it looks like he's standing on the branch, but he's sort of hovering above it. And then it's a 1 7/8 inch circle. I wanted it to have the same margin as the other black cardstock on our card. And we're going to use this sentiment that says, shake your fabulous feathers and party hard. I knew as soon as I made this one that I wanted an action wobbler. And I love that it's like both clean and simple, but a little bit interactive. And here he is. Watch this. He just like wiggles and dances, and I love it so much. And this is really quick. Like you could make a bunch of these very easily. Next, we're going to use the Toucan. I really thought the Toucan was going to be my favorite, and maybe he will be as I continue to make more of these, but there are so many great things in these kits. So this is the 3D embossing folder of the month, and I just ran it through with some green cardstock. I use a baby wipe just to add a little moisture so I don't get any cracking. And then I want a gradient of green, an ombre of green. So this is Perfection, which is a fairly dark green, but I'm using one of the Spellbinders large brushes, and I've sped this up 3 times, but you guys, it seriously took a minute and a half, because those brushes let you take one dark ink and easily get a gradient of color. It's because the bristles are so soft, so it's really easy to use that lighter hand and keep it light on one end. So here I am blabbing away, and I'm making a toucan. He has a base for his body, which is so helpful. I am just layering up different colors on that beak. There is a solid beak, and I haven't played with the solid one yet, but I have all kinds of plans. When I started looking up like toucans and birds of paradise and tropical birds, the colors on them are so incredible. So I'm gonna get there. Then for his face, I inlaid that cheek again, but I'm also gonna inlay the white piece that came out. I just used a green marker and filled that in, and then I'll use my white gel pen again just for the little hole in the black part of the eye. I want that to be white. I'm using my little wax pickup stick from Trinity Stamps for all of this. There's lots of companies that make them. I really like this one. I get questions about it from time to time, especially as I'm piecing together small die cuts like this. For his feet, again, I have just put glue at the very tops, and then I will lay the bird onto the feet. It just helps me with placement. My fingers aren't in the way as I'm trying to figure out where things go. There's also a tiny little black line that you can cut out for the beak if you choose to do the layers of color. But I have my solid one here too, just to make sure I know which direction it goes. I've gotten it kind of flip-flopped and turned around before, so I found that to be very helpful. I played around with a couple of wing options for colors, and ultimately I like the black one. I want to draw all the color attention to his beak, and then I will finish that up. Look how cute he is. Here I have a piece of white cardstock that is 3 by 4 1/4, and I am layering on some black leaves. This is a mix of leaves from the large die of the month, and the one in the bottom right is from the small die of the month. And again, I will use my sticky mat, and this time I actually set it in the top corner. I don't usually do that, and it kind of went awry. It's okay, it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna pick up one of them that I missed. Honestly, I'm just used to picking it up from the bottom left corner. I don't know why I didn't, so I didn't get my pressure right. I'm adding glue onto the back, and then I'm gonna tap a piece of scrap paper that I pulled out of my trash can right onto that glue. You guys have seen me do this on the back of my hand with small die cuts that are very thin, like that line on the beak. But here, I'm not tapping that whole like sticky mat full of die cuts on the back of my hand. But that frond in the top left is very thin, and I didn't want the glue oozing out and creating some weird texture on my card. I'll just eyeball the placement of this last one. I suppose this is what most people do, right? They just kind of eyeball it and wing it and see where it goes. But I'm a little type A. If you can't tell, welcome to Sarah's world where things are very linear and organized. Then I'm going to layer my white cardstock onto some black cardstock. It's 3 1/8 by 4 3/8. I have my background panel that I am adding to a top folding A2 card. I'm going to add a lot of glue. That emboss is really deep and the leaves are very large. So as we're looking at it from the front, it's only those little valley points that actually make contact with the card base. So I'm going to just be an over adheser and glue it down and make sure it's getting stuck. Then I'll add my other piece on there just with some wet glue. You could pop that up, right? But I tried to keep some of these a little thinner. There's a lot of layers of cardstock on this. To create a place for our toucan, I have a blue circle that's 2 5/8 and a black one that is 2 3/4. So that black margin will match the margin on our white and black cardstock. And then I just wanted a little bit of gradient to kind of mimic what we did with the green on the background. So nothing fancy. I decided sort of last minute, and it was fine. I can take that blue ink right over the black cardstock and no one's gonna notice. I spent about 10 years trying to arrange the leaves on the background. These are from the small die of the month. And in the end, I just grabbed 2 of the same leaf and I'm gonna cover a lot of it up. I taped my circle to my grid mat just so that I knew where to place my sticky mat, right? I don't really have a corner. Then I will add glue onto my leaves and I can lay it right back down in the same corner of my grid mat and I know my placement is right where I want it. Please let me know in the comments if you guys are sticky mat people, if that's how you pick up your die cuts, or if I'm just over here like overthinking how to pick everything up and put it back down. When I go to add my toucan, there's a little bit of foam tape everywhere but his feet because I doubled up the branch. And if I had it to do again, I wouldn't do that. But I didn't want his feet to be kind of pushed up by the branch and then the rest of him was sitting lower. So here are the strip sentiments, and to cut these out, I am going to cut so that you can see the tick marks on both sides. We want to line those tick marks up on the blade of our trimmer, and then I'll know that it's straight. I don't trust my printer, so I'm very careful about that first cut, and then I sort of flip and rotate so that I know that bottom right corner is 90 degrees. I trimmed out that entire half sheet because this one was way at the top of that list. So I stuck them in a storage pocket and now I'll just use my trimmer once again to even up the margins on either side. I have a black strip of cardstock that is 3/8 of an inch and I'm going to go ahead and layer this on the left so the top, bottom, and left margins are the same, and then I'll take it back to my trimmer again just to even that out. If you're new here, I release free printable kits on the 1st and 3rd Friday of every month, and then usually a bonus kit or 2 each month as well. And they generally all have these same 3 sizes of sentiments: strip sentiments, circle sentiments, and rectangles, so that if you're making your cards, you can wait and put the sentiments on them later, and you know you have a spot for it where you have lots of interchangeable options. So I've added my Toucan Celebrate Better Than One on the front, but if I have 2 toucan, I need another one on the inside. So I'm essentially making the exact same layout as we had on the previous card. So I'm not gonna like go into tons of detail about it. You know what we're doing, we just did it. I have already assembled my parrot, but this time in yellow. I'm laying down my leaves on the inside of my card the same way I did on the outside. And then I will add a little bit of glue to the back of my bird. I skipped the branch on this. It just gets kind of bulky by the time you add the branch. I'll trim off the extra leaves around the edges of my card, and that finishes up card number 2. Toucan Celebrate Better Than One. And we have our 2 friends. They're kind of like looking at each other through the card. I'm sure they can see through walls. I'm certain of it. And now we're moving on to card number 3, and it's a fun fold. Okay, so same parrot, right? I made 2 of the yellow bird, but there's also this floral that's in the large die of the month. So I have all the petals here, and I'm using a very pale ink, and I'm coming in from the center and pushing towards the outside, leaving a large chunk of white space. There's also 3 layering pieces for those petals, and I'm just putting a little pink on there too, where I think there would be shadow or where it would overlap the pink on the larger pieces. To put this together, the centers have this funky shape, and as long as you line that shape up so that they are perfectly overlapping, your flower is going to be in the right order. Now, I laid out my petals ahead of time with a sample flower right there, thinking, oh, this will be even easier if I know where they go. And I was wrong. I just went quickly. But you can see me here. I'm double checking, and I can tell every single time if it's in the right place or not. So just a little bit of glue in the middle. I like the top petal in the back, right? So most of these I'm layering one on top of the other, but for this last one, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over. For the layering pieces, it might be easier to layer those on before you put the big flower together, but I didn't. I've made 4 or 5 of these, and I have yet to do that. But this one piece on the top left actually tucks behind because of the way I put my flower together. It's fine because I didn't glue the entire petal. I just glued the center, but you can see me have to like lift it up and tuck it back behind there. Then in the center, there are 2 pieces. The first one is yellow, and actually I'm going to color the center of it black so I don't have to inlay that tiny little piece. And then I'll put the other yellow center right on top of that. And that finishes up our floral. You guys, this thing is beautiful. Look at that. For our background, we're going to use the stencil of the month. It's called Tropical Spray. And I love that it does kind of feel like water, but it also just feels like a fun background, or maybe like leaves. It's super versatile. Of all of the kits that I get, small die, large die stencil, and the 3D embossing folder, this one I think has the broadest application. So I went over the whole thing with some light green ink that really needed to be reinked. That ink pad's very dry. And then I'm coming in with some Perfect Pearl. This is the Perfect Pearl color. It's not really going to change the color of those, and it's only going to stick where the ink is wet. Okay, so I'm going to go over that a whole bunch of times, and then I am going to sort of take a dry cloth and just remove that excess. Okay, and I'm going to pick this up, and it adds this incredible shine all over it. For the second layer, there are only 2 layers of the stencil this month. I'm using a darker green. A lot of times in the stencil of the month, we've been getting like 4 or 5 stencils. Sometimes they layer, sometimes they don't. This is the first time they've done a 6x6, and I love that they were very careful to make sure it will cover an entire A2 card. On this layer of ink, I'm using the Perfect Pearl color Forever Green. And it is just going to add a little bit of darkness. Again, it's not really changing the color of my ink. If I had added like blue Perfect Pearl or something, then you would really notice it. But I just wanted some lighter shimmer and some darker shimmer. That first layer of the stencil that we put the white powder on isn't picking up this grain because it's not really wet anymore. So when we're done, we get this beautiful 2-tone shine, and I love it. So we're making a landscape card, but I have the fold on the left, not on the top, and it's really important. We're also taking this mirrored arch labels set. I love this thing. You guys know, if you've been here, you're like, yes, Sarah, we know, we know that's a favorite. This label is ever so slightly smaller than 4 1/4. And so I am just trimming down my cardstock until they are the same height. I think I did it taking off about 1/8 of an inch. Then I'm going to do the same thing to my card base. So I'll just hold that stenciled panel on top of my card base, make a couple pencil marks, and pray that my camera doesn't shake too badly. It's 2 layers of 100-pound cardstock, friends, but we did it. Okay, so then I've got to figure out where I want this placed. I flipped over my panel so I don't have to erase a pencil mark later. And I am just marking on that green panel where I want to cut it. Okay, now I have 2 pieces. I'm going to make that same cut on the front of my card. So I'm going to glue on the larger piece on the left right next to that fold, and then I will cut off the white part that remains only on the front flap, not the whole card. So now I have this other piece that lines up with it that I will glue to the inside of the card. And it looks like a continuous panel, but then when you go to open it, it's like, surprise, right? Part's on the outside, part is on the inside, and I just think it's a lot of fun. So I have cut 2 sets of labels. Again, the largest one is about 4 1/8 of an inch tall, and I've got a light blue, smaller one for the front of the card, and I'm gonna add glue only on half of it. I want the short edge of our card to hide seamlessly behind this piece. I did not add another layer of black cardstock right behind it, but I might go back and do that just so that when you open it up, it looks even more finished, right? So there you can just see the transition, and I left that, but you could cover that up. I am gonna layer up the same sizes of black and white, and then I'm gonna put that on the inside, and it's gonna be a fun place for us to write and hide our message. It also will cover up the seam of the green cardstock on the right and the white. Okay, so here they are, they're the same size, and I'm gonna lay this upside down on top of the piece on the front. Right? I'm bringing in some white cardstock for more contrast, and then I will just close the card into that glue. I have a little bit of wiggle room, and I will press down firmly. And that finishes the fun fold part of our card. It's a really quick and easy, and I think it's a super fun way to sort of step things up. Okay, so here's our flower and our yellow bird, and I love him. I don't think he could actually stand on that flower, but I don't care. I thought it was cute. I liked the layout. I liked the color composition. Do you do this? Do you just do kind of whatever you want when you're assembling your pieces? Because I just think that's more fun. That's how I like to do it. I added glue on his feet first, just so that I could treat the whole thing as a single piece. I want to make sure the tail feathers are inside of the card, right? If I don't mind it not fitting an envelope, technically they could stick on the outside, but I also don't want them to get damaged. This is a 1.5 by 2.5 inch rectangle. It's our standard mat for a rectangle emergency card. And I put a little bit of foam tape on one side just to even it out. I'm going to use a rectangle sentiment. And so I put this in my trimmer, and I'm going to cut connecting the vertical tick marks, but I am not cutting all the way through. Okay, so here's the next one, and I'm stopping as soon as I get to that header. You want to keep all of those pieces connected like this. So I have flaps now. Then I can rotate, and I still have the tick marks on the side to help me line everything up. So again, I'm just sort of running it through my trimmer, one set of tick marks at a time, and I end up with these perfect 1.25 by 2.25 inch sentiments. I'm going to add mine with removable adhesive in case I change my mind later, but this one says Flappy, Flippin, Bird Day. Oh, this one is so much fun, and I think I'm probably going to make a bunch more of those as well. This card's an accident. I was trying to make a version of this card, so we're actually going to make the 2 of them together. So this is the large die of the month, and it has these magical flamingos. You've seen the leaves, you've seen the florals. There's a small floral we haven't used yet, so we'll use that on one of these cards. And I'm just going to add some inking to one of my flamingos. There's 2 of them in the set, and they nest beautifully together if you want to use them both. But I'm just doing one. I want a little bit darker ink at the bottom, but that wing shouldn't be as dark as the bottom of the body. So I tucked a little scrap of cardstock in there because there's a cut on there, and then I can darken that ink and pull the cardstock right out. I have added a little bit of tape right behind the eye so I can just inlay that. I did add glue too, just to be safe, just to be safe. And then I will layer up the legs. There are pink pieces that go at the top of the stretched out legs, but not at the top of the folded up leg. I thought I could use the folded one here, but it's actually the wrong leg. It's going the other direction. The beak is really 2 pieces, and I'm just going to layer them right on top of each other. You certainly could do a little ink blending there. I think the beaks for flamingos actually have a little pink on them too, but I was keeping this pretty simple because I knew I was planning an elaborate background. So I will just lay the head onto the beak. Again, that helps me to see that placement. And then I'm going to set him aside and figure out the leg placement later. Just like some of our other backgrounds, I am layering up some leaves. I have them cut out of 2 shades of green on some very pale blue cardstock. And once I get them arranged, I have my sticky mat, right? Just a little bit tacky. I'll link it. I get lots of questions about this sticky mat. I get it from Amazon. It comes in maybe a 3-pack, but in that link, it actually has a bunch of sticky mats in different colors. So just kind of click through and look for the option that is clear or translucent, and that's the one I have. A heads up, when you first use it, it's pretty sticky. So you might take it and like press it on your jeans or whatever you're wearing just to kind of remove some of that tackiness. I've recently switched like in the last month, and so you guys have seen me struggle a little bit more than I was used to. But really what I do, like right there, I was like, that's not coming up. So I just let it sit for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, give the glue a little bit of time to really set, and then it comes off really easily. It doesn't leave any tackiness. And I just, once I started using it, I can't go back. It makes my life so much simpler when I'm using a lot of die cuts. I'm going to trim off the excess here, and then we're going to do another layer. I was dreaming about this layout. Like, do you guys do this? I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about different card layouts and compositions, and I knew I wanted like green and black leaves kind of all layered together. This is incredibly textural, and that's my favorite way. So I'm laying my sticky mat back down on there. I have my little tape pieces to let me know how far the glue can go. I don't like getting glue on my work mat, right? It's just kind of hard to clean up sometimes, or I forget to clean it up. So this is me being a little careful, but you certainly could just go for it. Then I'm going to lay that right back down into the bottom left corner, press it down, and then I'm going to let it sit, right? Then I'll come back to it and it comes off beautifully. I am being very careful with that leaf that has all the skinny little fronds, okay? But it works out just fine. Then just like before, I'll flip it over and I'll use my scissors to trim off any excess that's hanging over the background. I have a black mat to go with that, and then I have some polka dot pattern paper that I thought I was going to use. It's from this magical paper pad, but there's a lot in here that isn't sort of Disney themed. I particularly like the polka dots and the stripes. We're actually going to end up using the stripes on the second card. I thought I was using things here. So the blue piece is 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. The black piece is 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. And again, it leaves just this tiny 1/16 inch border. And then I set it on top of those polka dots, and I'm like, I don't like that. So then I grabbed the flamingo and I put the flamingo on the background. This is what I envisioned. And I tell you what, he gets totally lost. So I will set my majestic bird aside and we will just try something else. A piece of pale pink cardstock that's the same color as my flamingo, because I kind of had those color combinations in mind. And then I'm going to use my trick again with my really fluffy, large blending brushes. Puffy Heart is sort of a firecracker of a color, but these brushes are so soft that I can go with this medium powerhouse ink and still have a light fade up to the top, okay? I'm going to go ahead and add that onto my top folding A2 card base. Again, I'm just using lots and lots of wet glue, and I always try to push it up towards the top, towards the fold. Anywhere else I have white cardstock sticking out, I can trim that off, but you can't trim off the fold. I've added some 1mm foam tape on the back of my panel, and then I got really proud of myself for getting it straight the first time. Without my flamingos, I wasn't sure what to do about a focal point. So this is Emergency Card Kit 31, and that card sketch layers up the rectangles and circles to create a focal point for our sentiment. So we're going to do that. And here are just a couple of the cards that I made using that sketch. There's also a printout page for this fun fold. I will link to those videos below and at the end of this video. Once I get my focal point kind of in mind, I can start layering pieces up. I have a black rectangle that's 2 1/2 by 1 1/2, and then a silver one that's 2 1/4 by 1 1/4. And I am just centering one on top of the other. This pink circle is 2 1/4 inches. And then I also have a black circle that I'm going to put on top of that. That is our standard 2-inch sentiment mat for an emergency card. Again, the video that I'm linking has the printable with all the measurements and how to put things together. The videos walk you through kind of how I do that. But yeah, there's a card sketch at least twice a month on this channel. So I'm going to put that towards the top of my panel, and I decided I wanted to add some pops of white, and there's these tiny little flowers in the large die of the month, and so I'm layering up the centers onto them. I just do them kind of all in one go. Bunch of dots of glue, bunch of yellow centers, and we're done. If I had thought about it earlier, I would have layered the flowers before I ever put it on that black panel, or the pink panel for that matter. And I could have just used my sticky mat and picked them up and put them down the exact same way I have been doing, but I didn't. I do, however, want them to stop at the edge of that blue cardstock. So I am just cutting as straight as I can and then putting those right up against the edge of the blue cardstock. And it looks like this was the plan all along, like they were meant to go there. I really like that some of them will look like they are extending the scene the same way that the leaves do. And I've even got one kind of tucked under our sentiment. So I'm pulling out an older kit. This is the huge birthday kit that came out in January. I will link this one below. I'll link everything. You guys, everything's linked below. And it says, have a birthday as fantastic as you are. I'm using my removable adhesive, and then I will add that right to the center of my 2-inch circle, and that card is done. We have one more card to make, and at this point, I was like 7 cards in, but that's okay. And we're gonna add the legs onto our flamingo. I almost called him a penguin, you guys. I've done that like 5 times already. And then I'll start layering up the pieces on my card. I know where I want the flamingo to go. There's only one spot. He does fit on an A2, but I want some leaves as well. So I have one that is already a little bit cut off from another card. So I'm just using leftovers here. I'll pick it all up with my sticky mat once I know where it goes. I'll add my glue onto the back and then I will lay it right back down. Okay, so stripe side, bottom left corner, lay it down. I do have a flower up at the top that didn't get any glue because it's got another piece of cardstock on top of it. So I will add my flowers kind of by hand after the fact here, and that's easy enough. Again, I'm using pieces. This is part of a flower that got cut off from the card before. Nothing goes to waste here. I'm not recutting die cuts. Nobody's got time for that. A little bit of glue behind my flamingo, and then on his legs, they are very, very skinny. And so a lot of times if I have pieces like that, if I get too much glue, I will tap that off on a piece of scrap paper or the back of my hand. But I got a pretty thin bead of glue this time, so I just laid it right on down on my card. One more white flower, and then I can flip it over and trim it off. I have my Birds of Paradise sentiments. These are the circle sentiments, but they don't have circles around them. And I am bringing in a die from the notched corner frames. It is smaller than 1 3/4, but some of the sentiments are a little smaller than others. And so I cut that out and it's pretty tight. And then I cut another one out in black and cut it in half. And I am going to layer this just above and just below my white sentiment. It is a nesting set and I love that one. But the next die up creates a much larger border, and everywhere that I tried to put it as I was holding it over my card was covering up a lot of my flamingo, and nobody wants that. That's no fun. So I just have this little bit, and actually there's a couple places it could go, but the card finishes up really easily from here. I am just adding glue, and then I'm going to put that onto like an ocean blue panel. And I will add a little bit of foam tape onto the back of our sentiment, a little bit of glue just for wiggle room to make sure that I get it straight. And I will add that towards the bottom. All we're covering up is a little bit of one leg. And I think it's worth it because it says, holy flock, it's your birthday. So those are the 2 cards that we made when we intended to make 1. We made 5 whole cards today. I would love to know which of these is your favorite. If you are interested in the free printable, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. And if you ring that bell, you'll be notified every time I have a new free kit. I have another video coming out later this month using these kits, and it is a showstopper 5x7 funfold, and I love this thing. Let me know in the comments below if you also want to see that in an A2. The video right now is 25 minutes, so if I show you both sizes, it's probably a 40-minute video. So I'm curious for your feedback here. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.